Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. What I want to talk about today is a topic which is all in our minds, being educators, and how it is reshaping the way the education sector is actually moving ahead. We're going to talk about generative AI. I often think about how we frame our assessment for our students, and are we really emphasizing on getting them the skills as well, which will prepare them for the future, because in the future, every student of ours also needs to have an AI literacy. So what I'm going to talk about today is not a one-size-fits-all kind of a solution. These problems and the solutions is far more nuanced. So I'm going to put forward some of the framework that has been adopted in universities across the world. And that kind of will help us to approach how we frame our assessments for our students. So let's go over the outline for today's presentation. So I'm going to talk about the challenge first. So we are facing a challenge. And I think all of us agree on that when it comes to the Gen AI. I'm going to talk about a framework which has been adopted in one of the universities. It's called a two-lane assessment model. I'm going to talk about each lane and how we can look into it critically. At the same time, as a faculty, how can we build our defenses? I'm going to talk about trying a layered approach when it comes to our assessment. And finally, I'm going to talk about the guardrails. Can we follow some tools for process observation of our students? And finally, I want to open up discussions on the unreliability of AI detection softwares. Like, can we really trust them? So, and if you have time, I'm going to talk about some of the tools that I'm using in fall and in spring. So I think it's time for us to change the slide and start the presentation. So let's address the dilemma we face today. On one hand, our primary responsibility is to uphold the academic integrity. We need to ensure that the degree from our university carries some value, that our graduates are able to possess the knowledge and skills as we claim they do. On the one hand, we have a duty to prepare our students for the future workplace, where I mentioned that we need to ensure that our students has the AI literacy, and this is not an option. So this presents a real challenge. A complete ban on AI is clearly unrealistic and potentially bad for our students. But allowing unrestricted use can also make it very difficult for us to distinguish between student learning and the AI output. So where do we go from here? Today, I want to propose a framework which has been implemented in one of the universities. So what is a framework? To solve this dilemma, the University of Sydney has basically developed a two-lane assessment model, which I believe is pretty much in the forefront of tackling this challenge. Instead of a single restrictive policy, they have simplified their approach into what they call as a two-lane assessment model. So lane 1 is a secure assessment, and lane 2 is an open assessment. So I'm going to give you more details about each assessment now. So lane 1 is what we call as a secure assessment. This is our lane for validation. This is how we ensure that the integrity of our degrees we are ensuring that our degrees are valid and we can confidently stand behind our graduates' capabilities. This lane is very familiar, I'm sure. Like, this is our supervised assessment, our in-class exams, oral presentations, practicals, viva. This is where we can verify that the student's individual knowledge is good. But we all know that a lot of this learning happens outside this high-stake moments. So this is where the second lane comes in. The second lane is your open assessment. This is the student's space for learning, for getting feedback, for developing skills, and also critically learning how to use the modern technologies like AI under our guidance. The crucial pedagogical shift is this. In this open lane, AI use is not just allowed, it is expected. So let me tell you, in the University of Sydney, all the units which has this open assessment, if a student uses AI, they cannot be penalized. So if we look at it, this particular assessment lane puts the responsibility squarely on the students. because they can use these AI tools to accelerate their learning, but they have to make sure that they are not using it to replace it. Remember, if the students uses shortcut in lane 2, they simply won't have the skills to succeed when they reach the secure lane 1 assessment. So which means if some students use the lane 2 assessment not to learn through the process, they will fail when they reach the lane 1 assessment. So what is the ultimate payoff of adopting this dual lane approach? So let's imagine lane 2, the open lane, like a gym. This is where the students go to train. These are low stakes environment where we guide the students in using these powerful new tools effectively and ethically. It is where the formative learning happens, where they can build skills and deepen their understanding. Lane 1, the secure lane, serves as our accountability checkpoint. This is the game day. This is where the students must demonstrate that the learning has been internalized and that they can perform without technical assistance. So instead of us being reactive or building a reactive AI policy and trying to catch them, basically misusing AI tools, we try a proactive and we become AI coaches. Our focus shifts to designing meaningful learning experiences and guiding the students on how to leverage these technologies thoughtfully. So I think it helps to also have a frank conversation as to why students engage in academic misconduct in the first place. So Dr. Phil Newton argues that cheating is often less a moral failure, but more a strategic one. And it boils down to two simple facts. If cheating is easy, they will do it. If it works, they will continue doing it. So now let's apply this logic to our current reality. For many of our traditional assignments, the take-home essays, the research report, generative AI can produce really sophisticated, high-quality work with frighteningly little effort. We are not talking about clumsy plagiarism anymore. The difficult truth for us is to confront that many of our legacy assessments, AI can do it pretty easily and more effectively than ever before. It is getting better day by day. So to me, this signals that waging a war of detection is a losing battle. We have to fundamentally change the game we are asking the students to play. So over the last 1.5 years, I think this model came around 1 year, more than 1 year back. And this is a model which I've been using pretty effectively, and it is called AI Assessment Scale, or AIAS. It was developed by Mike Perkins and his colleagues, and it's a practical framework that enables us to make informal decisions on a case-by-case basis, and it clearly communicates the appropriateness of using AI for specific tasks. Now, I must tell you, like, first time I did it, I just showed the policy, and I said, you can only do level 3, level 2, level 1, for example, and I just left to that. Did not work. I had to actually hold sessions and make sure, because this is a very generic framework, a generic template, I had to show that what does it mean for level 3 in this specific assignment. So I had to work with my students and show, do not do this because this will become level 4, and this is specific to my assignment. So the AIAS provides us with language and structure to clearly convey the distinctions to our students, which is a core aspect of upholding the academic integrity. So if you can see closely, level 1 is no AI, which is basically our lane 1 secure assessment. Think of it like an in-class presentation or supervised exam. Level 2 allows us for brainstorming and outlining. Great for getting students off the ground. It ensures that the final product is always their own. They are just getting off the ground with level 2. Level 3 permits AI for editing. So grammar, syntax. This can be huge help for non-native English speakers. Level 4 is students can use AI to complete a task, but the main assessment is of the critique and the evaluation of how they have used AI. So this explicitly targets the critical thinking skills. Later down the presentation, I will show you some examples from my students. Level 5 is full AI, where the student uses AI as a genuine co-pilot. The beauty of this is that we can choose the level that best serves our learning outcome for any given assignment. So we have this excellent AIAS framework, to clarify expectations to our students. So that raises an immediate practical question for us as faculty. How do we actually implement this in our courses in a way that truly fosters ethical use and maintain academic integrity? The first thing I think is that we all need to accept that no single policy can certainly, and definitely no single piece of software is going to solve the complex challenge for us. I'm going to talk about AI plagiarism software a little later at my presentation. You know, what I think is that we should stop looking for the perfect solution, the most impenetrable barrier. Our focus should shift to creating multiple meaningful AI guardrails, layers of pedagogical practice that work in concert to guide students towards genuine learning and away from the misconduct. So this is one of the guardrails which I love the example and it really works. This is called the Swiss cheese model. The idea is simple but very powerful. Think of each of our integrity measures like our assignment design, our policies, our assessment method as a single slice of Swiss cheese. By itself, each slice is imperfect. It has holes. And the students who are determined to cheat could probably find a way through. But when you stack multiple slices together, the odds of all these holes lining up becomes incredibly slim. An act of misconduct that slips through one layer, say a vague policy, can get caught in the next. So what I do is that in a lot of my assignments, I have reflection. I also included process documentation. I tell the students, show me the process. And this is something which is at the heart of this debate. Are we just judging the end product? Are we also looking at the process? And are we asking the students themselves to reflect on it and document the process? So before we get into the examples, I want to mention that the most powerful tools I feel in this AI policy, and you saw the AIAS model before, is to include process observation. So this is where we deliberately design assessments that makes the students' learning journey visible. This can include in-class assessments, asking for a process focus assignments like send me your draft, or also for research journal. And this will, as I'm discussing in a moment, and I'll show you in the video some of the examples which I implemented in fall and in spring, you'll see how these tools really work. But if we just rely on one policy, we have to understand that this can be like notoriously unreliable, and we can also be biased. I'm going to talk about it in more detail because this whole approach for a faculty who sometimes say, I know when I see an assignment and I know that this has been written on AI. I think that is a very flawed and can lead to a lot of biases. I'm going to talk about it as we move along. So let's go and see some of the processes that I implement in my lecture. So I'm going to talk about my process here, what I have done in the recent past. So in spring 2025, I was teaching a course called Communication Research Methodology. In fall 2025, I'm teaching a lot of courses which is basically practical based. And for every course that I teach in fall, I have actually clearly demarcated in my assessment brief the AI policy. And as I showed you in the model, the AIAS model, I describe in detail, okay, for this assessment, what level of AI is required, what will make it a problem for you, and what will not. And actually demonstrate in the class. I show them an example that don't do this, and I make sure that there's a process observation in every step of the way. So I'm going to go and I'm going to show you some of the examples. For this one, there's no audio. I just want to show you a brief overview of how my assessment brief looks like in fall 2025. Let's have a look. I just want to play the video, okay, from my end. So this is no audio, so I'm just going to show you the video of some of my assessments. So this is my folder for fall 2025, and I'm going to show you from this course I'm teaching streaming, and this is the assessment brief. As you can see, every assessment has been given a deadline whatsoever, and then when you go into each assessment's brief, you can see that I have mentioned that for every assessment it is a layered approach. There's always a reflective piece. In the reflective piece, they're supposed to write a certain number of words. They're also supposed to record on Loom, so I use Loom for recording, and they have to answer these questions. They have to show me how they actually achieved the final output. Okay, this is the AIAS framework that I have used, and you can see that for each level, I'm allowing level 1, level 2, level 3, And for each level, I'm talking about how this particular assignment works, what they can do, what kind of method they can use, and this has to be clearly mentioned, and there has to be a disclaimer. And so the Loom recording, the screen recording that they do, basically talks about that in detail. So this is an example of a process. Now I teach a lot of practical courses, so obviously this is something which is unique for me, but anybody who's teaching practical courses, they can definitely try this approach. All right, so I'm going to show you the next example, which is actually from Spring. So here there is audio, so I will not talk, and you will hear the audio from the students. So this was telling you before that I teach a course of communication research methodology. This particular assessment was about review of literature. So the students were supposed to write a review of literature. I gave them a full brief, and they had to show me the process, how they actually used AI, because I had given them different levels that they can use. They were supposed to show me the prompts also, and I will play the video now so you can actually hear the students. This is a submission. This is part of the submission for communication research methodology, which I taught last term.
Or how I used Research Rabbit is I connected my Zotero account to it. It simplifies the process so much more. So how I did decide to choose some papers is, for example, there was one that was so just spot on perfect. I believe it's this paper here. It's fantastic. It's a Q1 journal.
Hi, this is Fatma Zahavi. Today I'm presenting my research process titled The Invisible Money Heist, Money Laundering Through Cryptocurrency. To begin, I used ChatGPT to brainstorm suitable titles for my research and refine the focus of the study that I chose because of how it piqued my interest. I conducted my research using various platforms, including Research Rabbit, Google Scholar, and the University Library database, which was recently fixed. While most papers were sourced from the first two platforms, I found some of these papers in the university database. As you can see, I used the keywords provided by ChatGPT to find suitable academic papers for my research. After gathering the papers, I used ChatGPT to analyze and summarize each one. This allowed me to extract key findings, methodologies, and conclusions from multiple sources efficiently and building a comprehensive draft. This is my note papers, and here we have attached some of the papers for a summarization.
As I was making this whole point of video presentation, please be aware that there are tools today like HeyGen, where a student can completely create an avatar of themselves and can get a script from AI and read the entire presentation. So please make sure that you use all these tools, but be aware that nothing is foolproof today. I just want to make that point very clear. All right, so now this is, so let's talk about process observation in more detail. Now I know that a lot of faculty in this meeting understands that written assignments is a different ballgame altogether, right? The concept is very straightforward. We ask students to share the version history of their document. I'm going to take you through some tools, which is really helpful. If you're using them already, great for you, but if you're not, then I think you can definitely learn something from here. So this gives a window into how the paper was constructed. We can see things like time spent while writing, what areas were copied in, and also the evolution of the entire document. There's a whole process where you can actually see the entire writing in fast motion. I'll show you. But we have to be realistic here. This is just a guardrail, not a fortress. It is not foolproof. Whenever I think about this, I know this can be broken. Like some students might find a way around. Okay, they might find applications online today that are available, AI tools available, which will do this whole process for you. They will create a whole process document for you. So for everything that comes out, there's always an anti-hero waiting for you to break it. So there are many tools available, as I mentioned to you. On your screen, you can see a list of tools that you can use. I particularly covered the first two, process feedback and Grammarly authorship. They both came out very recently, and I think these are some great tools that we can use. And One question that you might have, oh, like this is going to increase the load of the faculty, right? We are not only checking what they have wrote, but also checking how they wrote it, right? You don't have to, it gives you a very detailed report, which I'm going to show you in a while, but you don't really have to go through the entire detail. If you could just look at the submission, a quick scan of the writing process, and the time of typing versus the large paste events, it's enough to give you a sense of the process. And truly, what I actually tell my students is to reflect on your own writing process. I think it's a great tool for them to understand where they lack. They can look at the report and figure out, okay, this is one way I can improve my writing, for example. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to actually play another video. This is no audio, so I don't have to worry. This is a demo of both the tools. I'm going to give you them both. The first tool is the process feedback tool. And here you are. This is how the tool looks like. So it basically works also in Word, but also in Google Docs. So you install the extension, which is process feedback extension, on Google Chrome. So it adds as an extension on your browser. Then the students basically can write on Google Docs, and it will track all the writing. And then there's a button which says Generate Report. They will click on it, and mind you, this is all done by the students themselves. So there are two options. One is a quick report, one is a full report. You can ask them to generate both. So if you click on full report, this is what you get. Just imagine the amount of detail that you're going to get here. You're going to look at the typing time. If the students wrote over 2 days, how much typing did they take? Then there is a playback of typing. You will see the entire playback of the entire typing process of the students. Of course, it's in fast motion, but it will give you a good snapshot how they went about basically the writing process. Then you have active typing sessions. What time of the day, in how much longer time did they actually type? Okay, and this also can be generated as a chart. You can see the chart right here. It's beautiful. You can see the entire process of how much time they took for each typing session. Then you also have the copy paste events. What areas of the document was copied from where? Sometimes they are able to check the source, sometimes they are not able to check the source, but either way, you'll also get to see the copy paste events onto the Google Doc document. And if you go further on, you'll see the active typing days. If you're giving a big topic for a long article for research or long article for journalism, everything is here. You can see that text added and removed is also basically documented, and the typing speed is also documented. So all of this in a snapshot is what you're going to get when you are talking about using this tool called process feedback. The next tool, as I mentioned to you, also came very recently, is Grammarly Authorship. This is a tool which is also similar. So the students add the Grammarly, it's free of cost. You can install it as a Chrome extension. It will give you a whole wide report of what area was typed by the student, what area was typed by AI, and it'll give you a wholesome report. They also just released a plugin for Microsoft Word as well. So both these tools are excellent for process observation. So a tool is only good as how we use it. First, the primary goal should always be student learning. We can turn this into a very powerful meta-cognition exercise by asking the students to submit a reflection along with their process report. And second, we must be transparent. We must openly acknowledge that our students are open for this kind of discussions. I have had this discussion with my students. Would you be comfortable submitting with this? Because honestly, this is a great surveillance tool. Are we going to trust them? So that is a discussion that we need to have with our students on a regular basis whenever we want to implement any of this kind of tools. So before I conclude, I want to put forward a final word on the topic of AI detection software. We all have experiences, when in the beginning stages of AI. I used to think myself that I was good in figure. I still think I'm good, but that's not the point. Our first instinct must be to trust our own judgment. But in the recent past, there has been some research which makes it crystal clear. We are unreliable in telling the difference of what is being written by AI and what is being written by a real human. There are multiple studies which show that faculty can only guess correctly about 70% of the time. And one study found that 35% of the instructors could correctly identify the authorship of 4 sample essays. So our intuition can be a good starting point. I'm not saying that we should not have an intuition to start a conversation, but we must be also wary of our own biases and overconfidence. There is a very active and yet unresolved debate about whether these tools are biased against English learning learners. A Stanford study, for example, found that essays written by non-native speakers were frequently flagged as AI, while those from native speakers from middle schoolers were not. While other studies and companies like Turnitin report shows that there is no significant bias. This very existence of this conflicting evidence means that we cannot treat a detector's verdict as a definitive proof. Furthermore, relying on the technology pushes us to an adversarial role with our students and creates a potential for devastating false accusations, and this isn't just a theoretical risk. To give an example, in Australia this year, a student successfully overturned a penalty of AI misuse because the university's entire case was built on the output of a detector. The university failed to provide clear evidence of a fair process, especially when the tool in question was Grammarly, a tool they themselves had approved. So that case sets a powerful precedent. A penalty based solely on a detector's report may not hold up to scrutiny. Ultimately, this is an arm race, and we are most likely to lose it. For every new detection tool, a free software is already exists, which can humanize AI text to get around it. Really recently, I was looking at a LinkedIn post of a colleague from a university in UAE celebrating the new version of Turnitin. And within few hours, there were videos on YouTube showing there are few tools which can beat the Turnitin AI detection tool. So few hours, it just took few hours for some tools to beat Turnitin. So the point I'm trying to make here is simple. I believe the answer is everything we have discussed today. Instead of investing our time and energy into flawed strategy of detection and accusation, we should invest in our own pedagogy by adopting a layered Swiss cheese model, by using frameworks like the AIAS to be clear about our expectations, by designing assessments that make the process of learning visible. We shift the entire dynamic. We move the focus from a hunt for misconduct to a celebration of learning. We build a culture of integrity, not on suspicion, but on transparency, conversation, and robust process-oriented assignments. That's all from my side. I'm open for questions. Thank you so much.